The crystal glasses chimed like wind chimes in a storm of perfume, laughter, and whispered secrets. I balanced a tray of champagne flutes with one hand, weaving between sequined gowns and tailored suits. Everywhere I looked, the ballroom of the Royalton Hotel glittered. Chandeliers scattering light like shattered diamonds, music swelling beneath the murmur of money. It was supposed to be a charity gala for Harbor City Children's Hospital. But let's be honest, no one here cared about children. They cared about being seen caring about them. My name is Emma Carter, and invisibility had become my greatest skill. I'd spent 3 years serving drinks to the city's elite, the kind of people who never looked you in the eye but somehow made you feel smaller just by existing. They didn't see the woman behind the black polyester dress or the aching feet. They didn't see the single mother who took extra shifts because rent was due, because her little girl needed shoes, because there was no one else. My voice was automatic as I approached a table. "Champagne, ma'am?" The woman in emeralds didn't even glance at me as she plucked a glass from the tray. To her, I was air, and I'd gotten used to that. Invisibility was safer than being noticed. Until that night. The night I saw him. But before him, I saw the boy. He was sitting alone in the far corner, small legs dangling from an oversized chair, a perfect little statue in a charcoal gray suit. Other children were laughing, chasing each other across the dance floor. But not him. He was carefully aligning his silverware, fork, knife, spoon, over and over, like he was building order in a chaotic world. Something about his quiet focus tugged at me. He couldn't have been older than 6. His hair, dark and neat, reflected the chandelier's light. His bow tie was burgundy, perfectly knotted. But what struck me most was how no one saw him. A couple came by, took the chairs from his table, and didn't even look at the boy sitting there. He didn't look up either, just continued arranging, rearranging, building his tiny fortress of symmetry. Then a ripple moved through the crowd, that unmistakable hush when someone powerful enters a room. That's when I saw Victor Andreev. He didn't walk. He commanded. The crowd seemed to bend around him like gravity itself was responding. Tall, cold, a presence so sharp it could cut silence in half. His dark hair was touched with silver at the temples, the kind that didn't make a man look old but dangerous. His eyes were darker than the city's winter harbor, unreadable, bottomless. 2 men flanked him, silent, broad, and lethal. You could sense the weapons beneath their jackets even without seeing them. People pretended not to notice, but the energy shifted. The smiles froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. Everyone knew who he was, the man who ran Harbor City from the shadows. His name was whispered in bars and boardrooms alike, the ghost king of the underworld. Philanthropist by day, predator by night, and everyone here owed him something. Money, favors, or silence. But he didn't look at them. He was looking straight ahead. I followed his gaze, and my breath caught. He was walking toward the boy. When he reached the table, the stone in his expression cracked, just barely. He laid a large, careful hand on the boy's small shoulder, leaned down and said something I couldn't hear. The boy nodded once, mechanical but trusting. And that's when I understood. This wasn't just any child. This was his child. The whispers started around me like static. "That's Victor Andreev's son." The quiet one. "Something's wrong with him," I heard. "Autistic, poor thing. The mother left ages ago." "Can you blame her?" The tray shook in my hands. That word, defective, burned into me like acid. Because I thought of Grace, my little girl at home, asleep at my mother's house, 4 years old and already used to me working nights. Grace, who still believed her father might come back someday. The man who disappeared when I told him I was pregnant. I turned toward the whisperers, my voice shaking but sharp. "He can probably hear you, you know." They blinked at me like furniture had just spoken. "Children aren't deaf just because they're different," I added. "Try a little humanity." Then I walked away before they could respond, before I could get myself fired for speaking. The orchestra changed to a soft waltz. Parents began pulling their children onto the dance floor. Fathers twirling daughters, mothers laughing with sons. My chest tightened. Grace didn't have anyone to dance with but me, and I wasn't there. Then I looked back to the corner table. The boy was watching the dance floor. Not moving, just watching. A longing in his expression so deep, so innocent, it made something inside me ache. Before I could think better of it, I set my tray down and walked toward him. I knelt beside his chair, keeping my voice soft. "Hi there," I said. "I'm Emma. Would you like to dance?" He didn't look at me. His gaze hovered near my shoulder. "I'm a boy," he said plainly, "and I don't know how to dance." "That's okay," I smiled. "You don't have to. I can show you. You can say no if you don't want to." He hesitated, studying my hand like it was a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. Then, finally, placed his small palm in mine. "Okay," he said. I led him to the edge of the dance floor, far from the stares and murmurs. "Stand on my shoes," I said. "It's how my mom taught me." He carefully stepped on my feet, his little shoes polished to perfection, and then we began to sway, slowly, gently. His rhythm was perfect. "See?" I whispered. "You're a natural." He tilted his head, almost smiling. "We're counting," he said quietly. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. "Yes," I whispered. "Music is just math you can feel." That made him look up. Really look, almost meeting my eyes. And for the first time, I saw him smile. Then the music faded, and silence spread through the room like a tide going out. Everyone was staring. And across the dance floor stood Viktor Andreev watching us. His expression was unreadable. Predator stillness, fatherly fire. Then, slowly, deliberately, he began walking toward us. Each step was a warning, a storm approaching. "Dad's coming," the boy murmured, still counting under his breath. My pulse raced, but I held his hand steady. "It's okay," I whispered. "Keep counting." Victor stopped at the edge of the dance floor. He didn't speak, didn't blink. Just looked at us, at me, with a gaze that felt like it could see straight through skin and bone. Then, finally, he said one word. "Miss." I turned. "Sir?" He paused. "May I cut in?" Hey, before we continue, if you're feeling the story so far, please tap that subscribe button, drop a like, and share this with someone who loves deep stories too. And let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Now let's return to the moment everything changed. The voice was deep, smooth, and heavy with quiet authority. The kind of voice that didn't ask questions. It rearranged reality. The boy, his son, didn't stop counting. 1, 2, 3. Still swaying gently on my shoes. Still holding my hands. I forced a breath through my lungs. "We're almost done," I whispered. "One more spin, okay?" The boy nodded, precise as a clock. 1, 2, 3. When the music stopped, I gently lifted him off my shoes. "You did amazing," I said, my voice softer now. He looked up, his gaze landing somewhere near my chin. "Thank you for the dance," he said formally, like a miniature gentleman. "You're very welcome." "Leo?" I replied. I'd heard someone whisper his name earlier. He turned toward his father, who was standing just a few feet away. Up close, Viktor Andreev was even more striking. His presence filled every inch of space, like the air bent around him. He was handsome, yes, but in the way a thunderstorm is beautiful. Dangerous, impossible to ignore. The faint scar tracing his jaw only made him look more human. Or maybe less. He nodded once to his son, then shifted his gaze to me. "Miss..." He paused. "Emma," I said. "Miss Emma," he repeated slowly, my name sounding different in his accent. Warmer, yet heavier somehow. He extended a hand toward the table. "You will join us." It wasn't a request. I'm working," I stammered. "I can't. It's been arranged," he interrupted, already turning away, behind me. One of his men appeared. Silent, expressionless, an unspoken command in his posture. I glanced across the ballroom toward my supervisor, hoping for rescue. But Marcos avoided my eyes completely. Message received. I was on my own. I followed them, feeling the weight of hundreds of curious stares as I walked, a waitress trailing behind the most feared man in Harbor City. Victor pulled out a chair for me, the gesture oddly gentle for someone with his reputation. I sat on the edge, back straight, hands folded in my lap. Leo resumed his careful arrangement of silverware: spoon, knife, fork, humming faintly as he worked. "You dance well," Victor said. "Thank you," I managed. "My mother taught me." He tilted his head slightly. "And where did you learn to see my son? When everyone else pretends not to?" The question landed like a blow I didn't see coming. I hesitated. I have a daughter," I said softly. "She's 4. Children should never be invisible." Something flickered in his eyes, a softness that looked almost out of place there. Then, after a pause, "Yes," he murmured, "but in rooms like this, they are invisible unless they are perfect." I glanced at Leo, who was now aligning his napkin edge to edge with the table. "He likes patterns," I said quietly. "He finds comfort in order," Victor replied, his tone more father than mobster for the first time. "My daughter loves purple," I said, a small smile forming despite myself. "Everything she owns is purple. Shoes, toys, even her cereal bowl. If I move one thing, she knows immediately." Leo suddenly looked up, eyes focusing somewhere near my shoulder. "Purple is made of red and blue," he said. "It's the opposite of yellow on the color wheel." "That's exactly right," I said, smiling. "You know a lot about colors." "I read the encyclopedia," he answered matter-of-factly. "I'm on volume P." His father watched us both, and for a moment, something fragile passed through his eyes. Pride, maybe, or relief. "Dad," Leo said suddenly, turning toward him, "can Miss Emma come to the library? I want to show her my books." My smile faltered. My stomach twisted. Victor's face was unreadable. "Perhaps another time," he said finally. "It's getting late." Leo's shoulders dropped, disappointment flickering across his face. Before I could stop myself, I blurted, "I'd love to see your books sometime, if your dad says it's okay." I immediately regretted it. You don't invite yourself into the home of a man like Victor Andreev. But instead of anger, a faint smile touched his lips. "We shall see." Then one of his men appeared beside him, whispering something in his ear. Victor's expression darkened instantly. His jaw tensed. He stood up, all grace and control vanishing behind pure authority. "We must leave," he said, his tone final. "Leo, it's time." "But it's only 9:17, the boy replied, his voice precise, trembling at the edges. "You said until 10. I recognized the signs, the shallow breaths, the rigid posture, panic rising in a child who needed predictability. Before I could think twice, I reached into my apron and pulled out my secret, a small purple stress star I used for my own anxiety. I set it gently on the table near Leo's hand. "Here," I said softly. "It helps me when things change suddenly. You can squeeze it or roll it between your fingers." He stared at it, curious. His breathing slowed as he began pressing it between his palms. "It's squishy," he said after a moment. "Yes," I smiled. "And no matter how hard you squeeze it, it always goes back to its shape." His fingers worked the star, calm returning like a tide rolling in. When he finally looked up, he said quietly, "Thank you." Victor watched the exchange, his gaze unreadable. Something between surprise and something almost reverent. "You can keep it," I said. Leo nodded. "Okay." Victor straightened, his voice low but deliberate. "You have my gratitude, Miss Emma." It should have been the end of it, but then he added, "Anton will take your contact information." "Wait, what?" Before I could react, one of his men, the one with a scar running down his cheek, appeared beside me, holding a sleek black phone. "Your name, your number, your address," he said calmly. "Why?" I whispered. "It's not a request." So I typed it in, fingers trembling. When I handed the phone back, the man nodded once and disappeared into the crowd. Victor inclined his head toward me. Not a smile, not quite a warning either. And then walked away, his hand resting protectively on his son's shoulder. Leo turned back one last time before they reached the door. He raised the hand still clutching the purple star and waved. I waved back, and that's when I realized I had just stepped blindly into a world where a single act of kindness could change everything. Would you have given your contact information to a man like Victor Andreev? Or would you have walked away no matter the cost? Tell me in the comments. I'm curious how brave you think you'd be. The next morning came dressed in gray, rain tapping against my window like it was reminding me I didn't have the luxury of sleeping in. I rolled out of bed at 5:30 a.m., every muscle aching from the gala. The city outside was half awake, the kind of dawn that always smelled like wet pavement and burnt coffee. On the other side of my small apartment, Grace was curled up in my bed, her dark curls spread across my pillow, clutching her favorite purple hippo. Even in sleep, she looked like light, my entire reason for surviving another day. "I'll be back before you wake up, little star," I whispered, brushing a kiss over her warm forehead. She didn't stir, but she smiled faintly, like she heard me anyway. I got dressed quietly, black jeans, faded diner uniform shirt, my only decent sneakers. The bills on the counter glared at me like angry ghosts. Rent, utilities, daycare, all red-stamped and past due. The memory of Victor Andreev's stare from last night flickered through my mind like lightning. The boy, the star-shaped toy, that strange, unsettling moment when I'd handed over my contact info to one of the most dangerous men in Harbor City. I shook it off. It didn't mean anything. He'd forget me by morning. At least that's what I told myself. By 7 a.m., I was clocking in at Maggie's Diner, the kind of place that smelled like bacon, grease, and nostalgia. I'd worked there for years. The regulars knew me by name, the coffee pot by heart. Sunday mornings were brutal. Families in church clothes, construction workers in mud boots, hungover couples holding hands across sticky tables. I didn't have time to think about Victor or his son. At least, not until Carmen, our hostess, came rushing over to my section around 10. "Emma," she whispered, eyes wide, "there's a man here asking for you." I froze mid-pour, nearly overfilling a customer's cup. "What kind of man?" She leaned in. "The kind that looks like he could buy the whole city, or blow it up." My stomach dropped. "Where?" "By the door. Big guy. Buzz cut. Scar down his cheek." My heart stopped. Anton. I glanced across the diner, and there he was, standing by the entrance in a dark gray suit, hands clasped in front of him, scanning the room like a hawk on high alert. The regulars gave him a wide berth. Even the fry cook peeked out from the kitchen window, curious. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked over, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mr. Anton, right?" He nodded once. "Miss Carter." My name in his mouth sounded like an order. He reached inside his jacket, and I flinched. He noticed. "Just an envelope," he said calmly. He extended a thick, cream-colored envelope toward me, my name written on it in careful, looping handwriting. "What is this?" I asked. "Mr. Andreev's gratitude," he said, "for your kindness to Leo." My eyes darted to the envelope, then back to him. "Why would he—" "There is a car waiting for you when your shift ends at 3, Anton said smoothly. "Mr. Andreev would like to speak with you." My mouth went dry. "I can't. I have to pick up my daughter." He cut me off gently, but firmly. "Arrangements have been made. Your mother will watch her until 7. My heart thudded hard. "You spoke to my mother?" He nodded once. "This morning." Cold dread crept through my chest. "What did you tell her?" "That Mr. Andreev would like to discuss an opportunity with you." His tone was neutral, businesslike. "She was pleased." Of course she was. To her, any opportunity sounded like hope. "This isn't a request, is it?" I whispered. Anton's face didn't move. "The car will be outside at 3. He started to walk away, then paused. "Leo asked about you this morning." That made me freeze. "He did?" "He rarely speaks of anyone." With that, he was gone, the diner door swinging shut behind him. I stood there trembling, the envelope still warm from his hand. Carmen appeared behind me. "Girl, what was that? Who was he?" I forced a shaky smile. "Just someone from last night's event." I slipped the envelope into my apron, my heart racing. In the tiny bathroom at the back of the diner, I locked the door, sat on the edge of the sink, and opened it. Inside were 2 things, a folded piece of heavy paper and a check. I unfolded the note first. The handwriting was bold, deliberate. "Miss Carter, your kindness to my son was rare. Leo spoke of you with unusual warmth this morning. I would like to express my gratitude in person. A car will collect you after your shift at Maggie's Diner. You have my word." No harm will come to you. V. Andrev beneath it, the check, $5,000. My breath caught. $5,000. Enough to pay every bill, enough to fix my dying car. Enough to give Grace a Christmas that didn't come from the clearance bin. But from him? No. This wasn't a gift. It was a door. And stepping through it meant entering a world I didn't belong in. I refolded the note with trembling fingers, my reflection in the mirror pale and terrified. "What are you doing, Emma?" I whispered to myself. I thought of Grace, her laugh, her light, the way she believed I could fix anything. Maybe I couldn't, but maybe this was a chance to try. By 3 p.m., the black Mercedes was waiting outside. Anton stood beside it, holding the door open like he'd been carved from stone. Every instinct in my body screamed not to get in. But then I thought of Leo, his small hand in mine, the way he'd smiled for the first time that night. And I thought of Grace, my reason for every sleepless shift and every sacrifice. So I took a breath and stepped inside. The leather seat was softer than anything I'd ever sat on. The air smelled faintly of sandalwood and power. As the city slipped away behind the tinted windows, I realized something terrifying. For the first time in years, I had no idea where my life was headed, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever waited for me at the end of that road was going to change everything. And I couldn't help wondering, if you were sitting in that seat instead of me, holding that envelope, staring down a chance that might fix your whole life, would you have stepped into that car, or would you have walked away? The car moved like a shadow through Harbor City, quiet, efficient, and utterly detached from the noise of the world outside. I watched raindrops chase each other down the tinted window, each one catching a glimpse of my reflection before vanishing. Every turn took me farther from everything familiar: the old laundromat, the cracked sidewalk near Grace's preschool, the corner bodega where they always slipped me free muffins when I couldn't afford breakfast. Now, in the back seat of a black Mercedes, I was heading into another world entirely. Anton sat in the front passenger seat, silent as stone. I didn't dare ask where we were going. 40 minutes later, we turned off the main road and onto a private drive lined with towering oaks. The gates loomed ahead, black iron, gilded tips, flanked by cameras that followed us like eyes. The moment they opened, I knew there was no turning back. The Andrev estate wasn't a house. It was a fortress. A sprawling mansion of dark stone perched above the bay, its glass windows catching the gray light like mirrors. You could feel the power humming in the air, the kind of power that money alone couldn't buy. When the car stopped, Anton stepped out first, opening my door with precise timing. "This way," he said. The marble steps felt too smooth under my sneakers as I climbed them. The massive doors opened before we even reached them. Two men in tailored suits nodding silently as we passed. Inside, the air was colder, quieter. Every surface gleamed. Every piece of art looked priceless, and carefully chosen not to reveal anything about the man who lived here. Anton guided me through a maze of hallways until we reached a large room lined wall to wall with books. "Mr. E. Andrev will be with you shortly," he said, then closed the door behind me. The silence that followed was almost suffocating. I ran a hand along the spines of books on the nearest shelf, all leather-bound, titles in Russian and Latin mixed with English classics and philosophy, the kind of library that could tell 1,000 stories, but none of them mine. "Do you read Russian?" The voice behind me made me jump. I turned sharply, and there he was, Viktor Andrev. He stood in the doorway, no suit jacket this time, just a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, dark slacks, no tie. Somehow, the simplicity made him even more intimidating. His eyes, dark as the bay at midnight, studied me quietly, searching, measuring. "No," I stammered. "I was just looking. I didn't mean to." He raised a hand, stopping me. "Books are meant to be touched, Miss Carter. Otherwise, they're just decoration." He walked past me with that same quiet command that made every step feel deliberate. He moved like a man who owned his space completely, who didn't need to prove it to anyone. "Please," he said, motioning toward a pair of leather chairs near the fireplace. "Sit." I perched on the edge of one, my hands tight in my lap. He sat opposite me, elbows resting on his knees, eyes never leaving mine. You're afraid, he observed. Wouldn't you be? I managed. He smiled faintly, a flash of something human. Yes, I suppose I would. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The fire crackled softly, filling the heavy silence between us. Finally, I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope he'd sent. I can't accept this, I said, setting it on the table. It's too much. He didn't look at it. It's nothing. Not to me. Then why send it at all? To see what you'd do, he said simply. That stopped me. You're returning it, he continued, which means you have principles. Most people don't. I frowned. You sent me money to test me? He didn't answer. Instead, he leaned back, his gaze still sharp. You believe I'm a dangerous man. Should I not? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Everyone believes something. I care only about truth. I hesitated, my voice barely a whisper. And what's the truth? He looked toward the fire. The truth is that last night my son smiled. For the first time in months. Because of you. My breath caught. I want to thank you properly, he continued, his tone softening slightly. And to ask you for something. Here it comes, I thought. The real reason. I want you to spend time with Leo, he said simply. A few evenings a week, help him with reading, with conversation. Whatever comes naturally. You have a way with him. I blinked. You want to hire me? Hire isn't the right word. Think of it as companionship. For him. Someone who sees him, not just his diagnosis. My mind raced. Mr. Andreev, I'm a waitress. I don't have a degree in child development. You have something better, he interrupted. Instinct. He said it so matter-of-factly that for a moment I forgot to breathe. How much? I asked quietly, already regretting the question. $5,000 a week. I actually laughed. A sharp, nervous sound that didn't feel like mine. You're joking. Do I seem like a man who jokes? He asked evenly. I looked at him, at the cold certainty in his eyes, and realized he wasn't. That's insane, I whispered. Not to me, he said. Your time has value, and my son's peace of mind is priceless. My chest tightened. Why me, though? You could hire anyone. Someone qualified, someone trained. Because he doesn't need trained, Victor said quietly. He needs seen. The words hung in the air between us. I thought of Leo's tiny voice counting 1, 2, 3 under his breath, the way his hand had trembled until I placed that purple star beside it, and I realized he was right. Still, my instincts screamed caution. You don't take jobs from men like him. You don't bring your child into their world. Can I think about it? I asked softly. He nodded once. You have 3 days. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady. Mr. Andreev, He stopped me by placing something small on the table, the purple stress star. He hasn't let it out of his sight, Victor said. He wanted me to show you he's taking care of it. My throat tightened. He's a good kid. He's my world, he said simply. And for the first time, there was no steel in his voice, just love. When he walked me to the door, I caught sight of the ocean stretching beyond the cliff, waves crashing against jagged rocks below. It looked wild, untamed, just like the man standing beside me. Thank you for seeing him, he said quietly, when others refused to. I nodded, unsure what to say. As the car drove me back toward the city, the mansion shrinking behind me, one thought kept circling in my head like a ghost I couldn't shake. He wasn't wrong. Leo didn't need a therapist. He needed someone who cared. But could I really give him that, without losing myself? And somewhere deep down I wondered, if kindness can pull a woman like me into the orbit of a man like Victor Andreev, what would happen if I said yes? Would it heal us both? Or destroy us? It had been 3 weeks since the day I stepped through Victor Andreev's gates. 3 weeks of walking a tightrope between awe and unease, between safety and danger, between his world and mine. At first, I told myself I was only doing it for the money, for grace. But the truth was simpler and more dangerous. I had said yes because of Leo. The boy who never looked anyone in the eye, who spoke like each word had to be weighed before it was allowed out. The boy who, little by little, began to smile when I walked into the room. Grace loved visiting too. Victor had insisted she join me. He said it made Leo more comfortable. He wasn't wrong. Grace was sunshine where Leo was precision. She'd chatter about her favorite cartoons while he corrected her facts about space or sea creatures. And somehow they balanced each other. I'd watch them play on the carpeted floor of the Grand Conservatory, Leo with his carefully arranged blocks, Grace with her endless imagination. And something warm would bloom inside me. Something that terrified me, because it felt like belonging. That afternoon, the estate was quiet. Victor had called me into his study after our session with Leo. He stood by the window overlooking the cliffs, a glass of amber whiskey in his hand, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp as ever. "Leo has improved," he said. His therapist noticed. "He smiles more. He talks about you. About Grace." "I'm glad," I said, meaning it. He turned to face me. "You've done more for him in weeks than professionals did in years." I hesitated. He just needed someone to meet him where he was. A small smile ghosted across Victor's face. Rare, but real. "You remind me of her," he said quietly. "Her? His mother." I froze. He'd never spoken of her before. "She was kind," he said slowly, his gaze drifting back to the window. "And brave. Too brave for the life she stepped into." I felt a chill. What happened to her? He was silent for a long time, the kind of silence that fills a room like smoke. "She died," he said finally, 4 years ago, in an accident." I didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry." He gave a small nod, his jaw tightening, a man too used to swallowing his grief. "She loved music," he continued after a pause. "She used to dance to Swan Lake for Leo before bed. Even as a baby, he would stop crying the moment he heard it." His eyes met mine again, and for the first time, I saw the shadow of a man who had loved deeply and lost everything. "You keep her memory alive for him," I said softly. "Her memory keeps me alive," he corrected. Then he poured himself another drink. The conversation closed as abruptly as it had opened. The rest of the evening felt heavy. When Grace and I were leaving, Leo stopped us at the door. "Miss Emma," he said, his voice quiet but certain. "Do you like my dad?" The question caught me off guard. "I respect him," I said carefully. Leo tilted his head, studying my answer like an equation. "He smiles when you talk." I felt my heart skip. "He does?" "Yes, not like with other people. He listens to you differently." Before I could respond, Victor appeared behind him, hand resting gently on his son's shoulder. "Bedtime, Leo." Leo nodded, clutching his blue blanket. "Good night, Miss Emma. Good night, Grace." "Good night, sweetheart," I said, brushing his hair back gently. He hesitated, then added, "You should come to my birthday next week. I'll be 7. Victor's eyes softened. "We'd be honored to come," I said, smiling. He nodded solemnly. "I'll show you my books." Then he turned and disappeared down the hall. Victor waited until he was out of earshot. "He's never invited anyone to his birthday before." Something in his tone made me look at him differently. Not as the feared man in the news, but as a father desperate to give his son a piece of normal life. The next week moved quickly. Grace practiced singing "Happy Birthday" every night. I baked cookies for Leo myself, too nervous to trust them to the staff at the estate. When the day came, the mansion looked softer somehow, not less guarded, but warmer. Colorful decorations hung in the conservatory. A few of Victor's associates were there, their wives and children mingling awkwardly under the watchful eyes of security. Leo looked immaculate in a small navy suit, his hair brushed perfectly. He greeted guests politely but rarely met their gaze, until he saw us. "Emma!" he said, his voice carrying real excitement. "Grace!" He ran, across the room, stopping just short of a hug, instead offering a handshake that Grace ignored completely as she wrapped her tiny arms around him. He stiffened, startled, then slowly, carefully, patted her back. Victor watched from across the room, a faint smile ghosting across his lips. After the cake and music, Leo led me to his room to show me his latest project, a detailed model of the solar system. Each planet was perfectly aligned, orbiting the miniature sun on tiny wires. "It's about balance," he explained. "If one planet moves too fast, everything falls apart." His words lingered in my head long after I left his room. Balance. Maybe that's what I'd found here, between chaos and calm, between two broken worlds that somehow fit together. Or maybe it was just the illusion of safety before the fall. That night, after the guests had gone, Victor asked me to stay behind for a moment. We stepped onto the terrace overlooking the sea, the wind cool against my skin. "You've become important to him," he said quietly, "and to me." The air shifted. "To you?" I echoed. He didn't look at me. "You remind me that there are still good things in this world, that not everything I touch has to turn dark." My pulse quickened. "Victor." When he finally met my gaze, there was no calculation, no distance. Just raw honesty. "Tell me," he said softly, "do you believe people like me can ever be forgiven?" The question pierced through me, not about crime or power, but about the ache in his voice, the guilt beneath it. "I think," I said carefully, "everyone deserves one chance to be seen for who they are, not what the world made them." He stepped closer, his voice low. "And what do you see when you look at me?" I swallowed hard. A man trying to be better. His breath caught, a flicker of something dangerous in his eyes. Then he stepped back, breaking the spell. "Go home," he said quietly. "Get your daughter to bed." I turned to leave, my heart pounding. But before I reached the door, his voice stopped me. "Emma," he said, "be careful driving home tonight. Some people would hurt me by hurting those close to me." I froze. "What do you mean?" "Just a precaution," he said too calmly. "I'll handle it." He looked out at the ocean, hands in his pockets, the picture of calm control. But his eyes were storm dark. And that was the first time I realized something terrifying. Someone out there was trying to destroy Viktor Andreev. And by stepping into his world, I'd already become part of his weakness. Driving home, with Grace asleep in the back seat, I couldn't stop thinking about the look in his eyes when he said those words. "Be careful. You can't fake that kind of fear." And I wondered, was I saving his son? Or walking blindly into the line of fire? The next few days were a blur of normal that felt borrowed, like calm borrowed from a storm that hadn't finished forming. Grace and I still visited the Andreev estate 3 evenings a week. Leo still counted softly under his breath while we read aloud, still lined his pencils in perfect rows before drawing. Victor still watched us from a distance, the unreadable calm of a man who controlled everything except his own heart. But underneath the laughter and the gentle routine, something had shifted. There were more guards near the gate, more black cars parked along the tree line, and Victor's phone, usually silent, now buzzed every few minutes, each vibration followed by that same tightening of his jaw. One night, while Leo built his solar system again from memory, I asked him softly, "Is your dad busy these days?" He didn't look up. "There's a bad man," he said, like he was reciting a fact from an encyclopedia. My heart skipped. "A bad man?" He nodded once, setting the little Mars back on its wire. "Dad said he's trying to hurt our family." I forced a smile for him. "Your dad won't let that happen." But when I glanced toward the hallway, I saw Victor standing there, watching us, his face shadowed, his eyes full of things he would never say in front of his son. 2 nights later, everything unraveled. It started with a knock at my apartment door, late, after midnight. Too soft to be a neighbor, too steady to be random. I hesitated before opening it a crack. A man stood there. Not Anton, not anyone I'd seen before. His suit was dark but wrinkled, his eyes wild around the edges. "Miss Carter," he asked. "Who's asking?" He smiled, a strange, crooked twist of a smile. "A friend of Mr. Andreev." My stomach dropped. "You should talk to him, not me." "Oh, I intend to," he said. "But first, he needs to learn what happens when he lets people get too close." Before I could react, he pushed the door open hard. I stumbled backward, hitting the wall. Grace screamed from her room. "Don't touch her!" I yelled, grabbing the first thing I could, a ceramic lamp, and swung it. It crashed against his shoulder, shattering into 1,000 useless pieces. He cursed and lunged, but the sound of tires screeching outside cut him off. Then came the voice I never thought I'd be grateful to hear. Anton's. "Drop it!" he barked. 2 more men flooded the hallway behind him, guns drawn, precise and silent. The intruder froze, raised his hands. Anton's expression never changed. "Mr. Andreev sends his apologies," he said to me. "This should never have reached you." Grace was crying, clinging to my leg. "Get her out of here," I whispered. Shaking. "Please!" Anton gave a small nod. "You're both coming with us. Now!" The drive back to the estate felt endless. Grace slept in my lap, exhausted from tears. My own hands wouldn't stop trembling. When we arrived, Victor was waiting in the foyer, still in his black shirt from earlier, but now his sleeves were rolled up, his expression carved from fury and fear. He took one look at me and closed the space between us in 2 strides. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head. "He tried to—" "I know," he cut in. "He's gone. You're safe." But his eyes told a different story. They said I almost lost you. I looked down at Grace, sleeping soundly now in Anton's arms. "She shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be here." "You're not going anywhere," he said quietly. "Not tonight." Later, after Grace was asleep in one of the guest rooms, Victor found me in the study. He stood by the fire again, that same whiskey glass untouched in his hand. "I warned you," he said softly. "I told you there were people who would hurt me by hurting you." I stared at him, my anger finally cracking through the fear. "You knew this could happen and you still let me come around your son?" "I didn't let it happen," he said, voice low but hard. "I made mistakes in my life that don't disappear because I wish them away. But I won't let anyone touch you again. That's my promise." "Promises don't stop bullets, Victor." He flinched, just barely, but enough to make me realize how rare it was for anyone to talk to him that way. "Then I'll find the man who sent him," he said, "and I'll end it." "That's not justice," I said quietly. "That's revenge." He turned to me then, his face etched in pain. "When you've lost what I've lost, Emma, there's no difference." I wanted to believe him, to understand that kind of hurt, but all I could think about was Grace's small hands clinging to mine, her sobs echoing in my head. "I can't keep doing this," I said. "I can't keep bringing her into danger." He stepped closer, his voice breaking. "Don't leave. Victor, I can protect you here," he said, desperation leaking through the calm facade. "You and Grace. I swear it." The firelight flickered between us, and for the first time I saw the cracks in his armor, the guilt, the loneliness, the love he was trying so hard not to feel. I reached up, touching his cheek before I could stop myself. "You can't protect me from the world you built." He closed his eyes, leaning just slightly into my hand. "Maybe not, but I can try." We stood there, breathing the same heavy air, both knowing that whatever existed between us had already crossed a line neither of us could erase. The next morning, I woke to the sound of the sea pounding the cliffs. Victor was gone, off, handling things, according to Anton. The house felt hollow without him, and for the first time Leo didn't come looking for me. When I found him in the library, he was staring at a half-built puzzle. "Where's Dad?" he asked. "He had to take care of something important." He looked at the puzzle piece in his hand. "People always leave when things get broken." My chest tightened. "Not everyone," I said softly. "Some people stay until it's fixed." He nodded, still not looking up. "You'll stay?" "I'll stay," I promised. But deep down, I wasn't sure I could keep that promise. Because I knew, with a clarity that hurt, that I was already in too deep. And if Victor didn't come back, if the world he lived in swallowed him whole, then it wouldn't just be him I'd lose. It would be the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, we could have been something good. That night, as the ocean roared below the cliffs, I held Grace close and stared out into the dark. How far would I go to protect the ones I loved? And if love itself was the danger, would I still choose it? The morning air over the cliffs carried that kind of quiet that comes only after a storm has passed, or just before another begins. Victor hadn't returned. Anton said only, "He's taking care of business," which was his way of saying, "Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to." I spent the next 2 days pacing through the estate like a ghost in borrowed walls. Grace played with Leo in the solarium, their laughter echoing through marble halls that had forgotten joy for too long. But underneath the laughter, fear still pulsed, steady, quiet, relentless. On the third day, I found Victor's study door unlocked. I shouldn't have gone in. But something inside me needed to understand what kind of danger we were really in. The room smelled faintly of smoke and cedar. Papers covered the desk in neat stacks. Maps, ledgers, contracts written in languages I didn't recognize. Then I saw it. A photograph, tucked halfway beneath a file. Victor, younger, standing beside a woman with kind eyes and dark hair that fell in soft waves across her shoulders. She was laughing. He wasn't, but the way he looked at her, like she was light itself, told me everything. Leo's mother. I lifted the picture gently, my fingers trembling. Behind it was another, smaller, creased at the edges. This one stopped my breath. It wasn't the woman I expected. It was the man who'd broken into my apartment, smiling, arm around Victor's shoulder, a note scribbled on the back. To my brother, always together. A. I froze. Brother. That meant the man who tried to hurt me, the man Victor swore he'd take care of, was family. And Victor hadn't told me. The realization hit like cold water. The danger wasn't just from rivals. It was from the same bloodline. And if Victor had hidden that from me, what else was he hiding? I slipped the photo into my pocket and left the study, my heart pounding so loud I thought the guards might hear it. I needed answers. That night, after Grace was asleep, I found Anton near the main gate. He stood under a single pool of light, cigarette glowing faintly in the dark. Anton, I said softly. He turned, startled. You shouldn't be out here. I know, I said, but I found something. About Victor's brother. His face changed, just slightly, but enough to confirm I was right. You know who I mean, I pressed. Tell me. He exhaled slowly, smoke curling into the air. It's not my story to tell. Then whose is it? He dropped the cigarette, crushed it under his boot. You care about him, he said finally. That's why I'll tell you enough to understand. I waited, holding my breath. Years ago, Anton said quietly, Victor's brother, Alexei, ran part of the business. But he got greedy. Started dealing with people who didn't care about codes or family. There was a betrayal, money, blood. He looked out at the darkness beyond the gates. Victor let him live. But Alexei never forgave him for taking everything else away. My stomach twisted. So the man who came to my door was Alexei's warning, Anton said, and Victor's punishment for letting anyone close again. I felt my chest tighten. He knew it was his brother, didn't he? He knew! Anton's silence was answer enough. Why didn't he tell me? I whispered. Because he knew you'd run, Anton said, and losing you would have destroyed him faster than any bullet. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat by Grace's bed, listening to her soft breathing, the ocean outside roaring like a secret too heavy to hold. Part of me wanted to pack our things and leave before sunrise, to take her somewhere far from men like Victor and the ghosts they carried. But another part of me, the part that had seen the way Leo smiled now, the way Victor looked at his son like he was all that mattered, knew I couldn't just disappear. Not yet. Not until I made sure Leo was safe. Not until I understood what really happened to the woman in that photograph. The next morning I found Leo in the library, tracing his fingers over a globe. Morning sunshine, I said, trying to sound normal. He looked up. Dad's not back yet. No, I said softly, but he will be. He turned the globe again, his voice small. When people go away for too long, it means something bad happened. I crouched beside him, my hand covering his. Not always, sweetheart. Sometimes they just need time to make things right. He looked at me for a long moment. You sound like him. It almost broke me. That afternoon, I made a decision. If Victor wouldn't tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. So when Anton left for a meeting and the guards changed shifts, I slipped into the garage. The keys to one of the smaller cars hung on a rack. Too easy. I drove into the city with my heart hammering in my chest, heading for the only lead I had. A name I'd seen scrawled in Victor's notes, Ivan Gurev, a club owner, One of Alexei's old associates. The place was quiet when I arrived. The kind of quiet that hides danger. Inside, low lights, cheap cologne, and the faint thump of distant bass. The bartender looked up as I walked in. "You lost?" "I'm looking for Ivan," I said. He frowned. "Who's asking?" I hesitated. "A friend of Victor Andreev." That name got his attention. He leaned closer. "You shouldn't say that here." Before I could respond, a voice from the back called, "Let her in." Ivan. He was older than I expected. His left hand missing 2 fingers, his smile too wide to be kind. "So," he said, eyeing me like prey. "The famous Emma Carter." My blood ran cold. "You know who I am." "Oh, we all do," he said, leaning back. "You're the girl who made Victor Andreev feel something again. That's dangerous." "I just want to know why Alexei wants to hurt him." He chuckled. "Why? Because Victor stole everything. Money, power, even the woman Alexei loved. You think she died in an accident? No, sweetheart. She was caught in the crossfire of their war." I shook my head, the room spinning. "You're lying." "Am I?" His grin widened. "Ask Victor what really happened to Leo's mother." I left the club shaking, the city lights blurring through my tears. Everything I thought I knew about Victor, about the man I'd come to trust, maybe even love, was crumbling. And as I drove back toward the estate, one thought kept pounding in my chest like a heartbeat I couldn't ignore. If what Yvonne said was true, then Victor wasn't just a man haunted by loss. He was the reason for it. Sometimes truth isn't the light we're searching for. Sometimes it's the fire that burns down everything we've built. And as the mansion came into view, I knew that the next time I looked Victor in the eye, I wouldn't be able to pretend anymore. The mansion loomed ahead like a silent judgment, its windows glowing faintly against the storm that was rolling in from the bay. By the time I parked in the gravel drive, rain was already beginning to fall. Soft at first, then heavier, as if the sky itself couldn't hold back anymore. I sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe through the ache in my chest. Ivan's words kept replaying over and over. "You think she died in an accident? She was caught in the crossfire." Could that really be true? Could Victor, the man who looked at his son like he was the last good thing on earth, also be the man who'd caused his wife's death? I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't ignore it either. I stepped out into the rain. The guards at the front door didn't stop me. They knew who I was by now. They simply stepped aside and said, "He's waiting in the study." The words sent a chill straight through me. He knew I'd come. When I pushed open the heavy wooden door, Victor was standing by the fire again, hands clasped behind his back. The same pose as always, control wrapped in human skin, but there was something different tonight. A weariness in his posture, a quiet surrender hiding beneath the surface. "Emma," he said, his voice low, almost relieved. "You shouldn't have gone into the city." "So you know," I said bitterly. "You have people watching me." "I have people protecting you," he corrected. "It's not the same." I took a step closer, my voice shaking. "Then why didn't you protect me from the truth?" He turned. "What truth?" "That Alexei was your brother." His jaw tensed, just enough to tell me everything I needed to know. "So it's true," I whispered. "He tried to hurt me because of you." Victor's voice hardened. "Because he hates me and everything connected to me." "Why?" I demanded. "What happened between you two? What happened to Leo's mother?" For the first time since I'd met him, Victor looked away. "You don't want those answers," he said quietly. "Yes," I said. "I do. I deserve them." He was silent for a long moment. Then finally he said, "Sit." I didn't. "Please," he added softly, "if I'm going to lose you tonight, let me at least do it honestly." I sank into the chair across from him, heart pounding. He didn't look at me when he spoke, just into the fire, as if the flames were showing him ghosts. "Her name was Elena," he began. "She was light. I met her when my world was already black. She made it bearable. She made me believe that I could build something better." He swallowed hard. "Alexei loved her first." My breath caught. "She chose me," he continued. "I should have known that love would destroy everything." He set his glass down, the sound sharp in the quiet room. Alexei tried to take her back. I thought it was just rage. I thought he'd calm down. But then, someone sabotaged a deal. A shipment meant for him exploded. There was gunfire, chaos. He looked up, eyes burning. Elena was there. She shouldn't have been. She came to stop us from killing each other. The next words came out raw. And she died in the crossfire. My bullet didn't hit her, but it doesn't matter. My war did. Silence filled the room, thick and heavy as grief. I felt the tears burning behind my eyes, but I didn't move. He continued, voice breaking. Leo doesn't remember. He was too young. I told him it was an accident because I couldn't bear for him to know what kind of man his father really was. I closed my eyes. And now you're repeating the same thing. Another innocent caught in the middle. His voice dropped to a whisper. That's why I didn't want you here. But you did want me here, I said, standing now. You kept pulling me closer, knowing what it could cost. You talk about protection, but this isn't safety, Victor. It's a cage. He stood too, the tension in his body coiling tight. You think I don't know that? You think I haven't tried to keep you out of this? Then let me go, I said. He flinched like I'd struck him. You don't belong in my world, Emma, he said finally, his voice breaking around my name. But I don't know how to let you leave it. For a long time, neither of us spoke, just the fire, whispering between us. Then the door burst open. Anton rushed in, breathless. We have a problem! He's here! Who? Victor demanded. Anton's eyes flicked to me, then back to his boss. Alexei. Everything happened at once. The lights flickered. A shot cracked somewhere outside. Then another. Victor grabbed my hand. Stay behind me! We ran through the hallways, the sound of gunfire echoing closer, thunder rolling from the storm outside. Guards shouted. Footsteps pounded on marble. Victor pushed me into a side room. Leo's. Grace and Leo were huddled by the window, terrified. Get them out! Victor barked at Anton. Anton grabbed both kids, his face grim. This way! I moved to follow, but Victor caught my wrist. Not you! What? No! I'm not leaving you! He met my eyes. If he wants me, he'll find me, but I won't let him touch them. He released me and turned toward the hall, pulling a gun from inside his jacket. Victor! I cried, but he was already gone. The next few minutes stretched like years. I led Anton and the children down a narrow servants' passage toward the garage. The walls shook with distant explosions. When we reached the side exit, Anton shoved open the door, and there he was. Alexei. His face was twisted with rage and something deeper, a pain that looked too much like Victor's. Well, he sneered, the famous Miss Carter, the one who replaced my brother's wife. Get out of our way, Anton said, stepping forward. Alexei raised his gun. No one's leaving until Victor feels what I felt. He pulled the trigger. Anton dropped instantly, the sound deafening. I screamed, shielding the children as Alexei stepped closer. Run, I whispered to Grace. Take Leo and run. She hesitated, terrified. Mom, go! I yelled, and somehow she did, pulling Leo by the hand through the side door. Alexei aimed at me next, but before he could fire, a single shot rang out. He froze, then fell. Behind him, Victor stood, smoke still curling from his gun. He looked at his brother's body, then at me, eyes hollow, shoulders shaking. It's over, I whispered. He shook his head slowly. No, it's never over. The rain outside poured harder, washing over the steps as if the sky itself was weeping for what had been lost. That night, as the police sirens echoed in the distance and the fire in the study finally went out, I realized something Victor had known all along. You can't outrun your past. You can only decide who you'll be when it finally catches up. Dawn came slow over the cliffs, pale light spreading across a house that no longer felt alive. The storm had passed, but the air still carried the scent of rain and smoke and gunpowder. Police cars lined the drive. Paramedics moved like ghosts through the hallway. The noise of radios, the click of cameras, the murmur of questions. It all blurred into a low hum I could barely hear. I sat on the stone steps outside the front door, Grace asleep in my lap, her small body heavy with exhaustion. Leo sat beside me, wrapped in a blanket, eyes fixed on the horizon. He hadn't spoken since the night before. When Victor finally emerged from the house, his shirt was stained with blood that wasn't his. He looked older, the weight of everything carved into the lines around his eyes. He walked toward us slowly, as though every step hurt. I stood. He stopped in front of me. "He's gone," he said simply. "I know." He looked at Leo, his entire world, and for the first time I saw pure, unfiltered pain break through his calm. Leo rose and went to him without hesitation. He didn't speak, just pressed his forehead against his father's chest. Victor knelt, holding him tight, silent tears falling into the boy's dark hair. I turned away, giving them the moment they both deserved. Hours passed before the police finally left. Anton survived. Barely. They'd taken him to the hospital, still unconscious but breathing. The estate was quiet again, except for the sea. Always the sea. I found Victor in the conservatory, standing by the shattered glass wall that overlooked the bay. He didn't turn when I entered. "Are you here to say goodbye?" he asked. "I don't know yet," I said. He exhaled slowly. "You should. There's nothing left here for you but ghosts." I stepped closer. "And what about Leo?" "He'll be safe now," Victor said. "I've made arrangements, legitimate ones. The business, what's left of it, will be dismantled." I studied him. "And you?" He gave a small, almost broken smile. "I'll answer for what I've done. The police will come for me soon." I shook my head. "You don't have to turn yourself in." "Yes, I do," he said quietly. "I promised Leo that the world could still be good, that people can still change. If I run, that promise dies with me." The honesty in his voice cut deeper than any lie ever could. He looked at me then, really looked, without walls, without armor. "I never meant for you to be part of this, but you gave my son back his laughter. You gave me back something I thought I'd buried." I felt my throat tighten. "And what was that?" "Hope." The next few days blurred together. The media called it a feud gone tragic. The papers wrote about the fall of the Andreev Empire. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the quiet moments after. Leo and Grace sitting in the garden, drawing in the sunlight. Their laughter soft, fragile, real. And Victor always nearby, always watching. A father relearning how to be human. He didn't speak of prison or what would happen next. He only asked me for one thing. "Stay with him until I'm gone," he said. "He trusts you. He needs you." I promised I would. The morning he left, the sky was clear and cruelly beautiful. Leo clung to him at the front door, whispering something only his father could hear. Victor knelt, pressing a kiss to his son's forehead. "Be better than me," he said softly. "That's all I ask." When he stood, our eyes met. There were no grand speeches, no confessions, just a quiet understanding that what we'd shared, whatever it was, had changed us both forever. He reached into his pocket and handed me something small, the purple stress star, worn smooth now from years of use. "He doesn't need it anymore," Victor said. "Maybe I never did either." And then he walked down the steps into the waiting car. The gates closed behind him, and the world felt quieter for it. Months passed. The house by the cliffs was sold, the guards gone, the rumors fading like tide marks on sand. Grace started kindergarten. Leo visited us every weekend, his laughter freer, his world wider. He still asked about his father sometimes, in that careful, factual way of his. I always told him the truth. "Your dad is learning to make things right." And every time I said it, I saw a little more peace in his eyes. One spring afternoon, months later, I received a letter. No return address, just my name in Victor's familiar handwriting. Inside, Emma. If you're reading this, then time has done what bullets could not, given me distance to see what matters. You once told me that truth doesn't hide forever. You were right. The truth is that you and your daughter saved my son, and in doing so, saved me. There's a small house near the harbor. It's in your name now. For Grace. For Leo, when he visits. For the future you both deserve. Don't remember me as what I was. Remember me as the man who finally tried to be good. V. The paper blurred through my tears. I looked up, out the window. The harbor shimmered in the distance. For the first time in years, I didn't feel afraid of what came next. A few weeks later, Leo came to stay for the weekend. We took the kids to the beach, their laughter echoing across the sand, the wind tugging at their hair. As the sun set, Leo tugged at my sleeve. Do you think Dad can see us from where he is? I smiled through the ache. I think he can. He looked out over the waves. Then I hope he knows I'm not invisible anymore. I wrapped an arm around both children as the sky turned gold and the ocean breathed against the shore. Somewhere out there, I imagined Victor watching them, finally at peace. They say love can't save you. Maybe that's true. But sometimes, love is the thing that teaches you how to save yourself. If you were in my place, if forgiveness came wrapped in pain and second chances, would you have opened your heart again? Tell me in the comments. I'd like to know. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.